Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his fleet die. Red lights flashed across the control panels as ship after ship exploded in the darkness of space. The Krex Empire had found them again. "Sir, we have lost 12. More vessels," his aide reported. Her voice shook with fear. "The enemy shields are holding. Our weapons cannot break through." Vextar closed his 4 eyes and felt his heart sink. For 3 long years, the Zeridian coalition had fought against the Krex Empire. 7 different alien species had joined together to defend their homes. But they were losing badly. The Krex ships moved like deadly shadows through space. Their weapons could destroy a coalition battleship with just a few shots. Their shields could stop any attack the coalition threw at them. Every battle ended the same way, with coalition ships burning and Krex forces moving closer to their home worlds. "Order. All ships to retreat," Vextar said quietly. "We cannot win this fight." The remaining coalition ships turned and fled. Behind them, the Krex fleet did not chase. They did not need to. Everyone knew the coalition was finished. Back on Zeridian Prime, the coalition high command met in their war room. The holographic display showed their territory shrinking day by day. Red markers showed Krex-controlled systems. Blue markers showed coalition worlds. There were far more red markers than blue ones. "How many worlds do we have left?" asked General Mortai, a tall creature with gray skin and no hair. 12. "Systems remain under our control," answered the computer. "At current rate of Krex advance, complete conquest will occur in 6 months and 14 days. The room fell silent. 6 months. That was all they had left. "We need help," said Admiral Azekra. Her tentacles moved nervously as she spoke. "We cannot fight the Krex alone anymore." "From whom?" asked General Mortai. "Every species in this part of the galaxy either fights with us already or has been conquered by the Krex." "There is one possibility," said a small voice from the corner. All eyes turned to Dr. Yelenex, the Coalition's chief scientist. "The humans." Several commanders made sounds of disbelief. General Mortai's face showed disgust. "The humans? They are barely able to travel between stars. They have no energy weapons, no shield technology. They still use chemical rockets and metal bullets." "Yes," said Dr. Yelenex. "But they are the only ones we have not asked for help." Admiral Zikra moved closer to the holographic display. "Show us human space," she ordered. A small section of the galaxy lit up in green. The human territory was tiny compared to both the Coalition and the Krex Empire. Only 23 star systems belonged to the humans. "They contacted us just 2 years ago," Dr. Yelenex continued. "Their technology is primitive, yes, but they have something we do not." "What is that?" asked General Mortai. "They are still free." The debate continued for hours. Some commanders thought asking humans for help was foolish. Others said they had no choice. In the end, desperation won. 3 days later, the Coalition's fastest messenger ship jumped into human space. It found the human home fleet orbiting a blue planet called Earth. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking coffee on the bridge of the UEC Defiance when the alien ship appeared. The human fleet immediately went to battle stations. They had never seen a Zeridian ship before. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," he said over the radio. "State your business in human space." The reply came in broken English. "Please ... we need help. The Krex Empire will destroy us all." Lieutenant Amy Sullivan looked up from her control panel. "Sir, they are broadcasting Coalition identification. Codes. I think they are friendly." Morrison nodded. "Allow them to dock with our station." 1 hour later, Morrison sat across from the Zeridian ambassador in the station's meeting room. The alien looked tired and scared. "Captain Morrison, Ambassador said, "My people are dying. The Krex Empire has conquered most of our worlds. We have 6 months before they destroy us completely." Morrison leaned forward. "What do you want from us?" "Military assistance. Ships, soldiers, anything you can spare." Morrison almost laughed. "Ambassador, we only have 50 warships. The Coalition has thousands. If you cannot stop the Krex, how can we?" "I do not know," the ambassador admitted. "But we have tried everything else. You are our last hope." That evening, Morrison called Earth's government. The president listened to his report in silence. "Mr. President," Morrison said, "they are asking. Used to fight an enemy that has conquered half the galaxy. Our weapons are centuries behind theirs. It would be suicide." "But they are asking for our help," the president replied. "If we say no, and they fall, what happens when the Krex Empire comes for us?" Morrison had no answer for that. 2 weeks later, Admiral Lessa Hayes stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Relentless. Behind her ship, 39 other human vessels prepared for their first jump into Coalition space. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. "All ships report ready," said Commander Ryan Brooks from his engineering station. Admiral Hayes looked out at the stars. Somewhere beyond those points of light, an entire civilization was dying. The humans might not be able to save them. They might all die trying. But they could not stand by and do nothing. "All ships," she said into her radio. "This is Admiral Hayes. We are about to enter a war that is not our own, to help people we barely know, against an enemy we do not understand. But we are human. We do not abandon our friends." She paused and looked around the bridge at her crew. They were young and scared, but their eyes were determined. "Jump in 3.2.1 mark." The human fleet disappeared in flashes of light. Heading toward a war they could not win. They did not know it yet, but they were about to change everything. Admiral Hayes watched the battlefield through her ship's view screen and felt sick. The planet Talron Prime burned below them. Krex warships circled like hungry sharks, while Coalition forces tried desperately to defend the last city. "Ma'am, Coalition. Command is requesting immediate assistance," reported Lieutenant Commander Tracy Wells. "Their ground forces are about to be overrun." Hayes studied the tactical display. The Krex had positioned their ships perfectly. Any direct attack would be suicide for the human fleet. Their shields were too strong, and their weapons too powerful. "Get me Sergeant Major Cooper," Hayes ordered. On the planet's surface, Sergeant Major Dan Cooper crouched behind the ruins of a building. Around him, his Marines checked their weapons one last time. The sounds of battle grew closer as Krex ground forces pushed through the city. "Cooper here, Admiral," he said into his radio. "Dan, the Coalition forces are fighting in the open streets. They're getting slaughtered. Can your people do anything?" Cooper looked around at the destroyed buildings and rubbed his chin. "Ma'am, these aliens fight like they're on a parade ground. Very neat and organized. The Krex are doing the same thing. Your point? We don't fight that way. Give us 12 hours to get in position." Hayes trusted Cooper completely. "You have it. Try not to get killed." "No promises, ma'am." Cooper gathered his squad leaders. "Listen up. The Coalition thinks this is about honor and fair fighting. The Krex think the same thing. They're both wrong. This is about winning." Corporal Maria Santos raised her hand. "What's the plan, Sarge?" "We make them angry. We hit them where they don't expect. We break their rules." That night, Cooper's Marines spread throughout the city. They placed explosive charges in empty buildings. They set up hidden positions in sewers and rooftops. They prepared traps and ambushes in places no honorable warrior would think to look. The next morning, the Krex ground forces attacked as usual. They marched in perfect formations down the main streets. The coalition forces met them with organized battle lines. Then the humans joined the fight. A Krex command post exploded without warning. Snipers picked off officers from impossible distances. Small groups of Marines appeared, attacked, and vanished before the enemy could respond. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Martinez lay on a rooftop 3 kilometers away from the fighting. Through her rifle scope, she watched Krex commanders try to coordinate their forces. Target acquired, she whispered to her spotter. Krex General, 2 o'clock. She pulled the trigger. The bullet flew silently through the air and struck the Krex leader in the head. The enemy formation immediately began to fall apart. Nice shot, said her spotter. But how come they can't see us? Their sensors are designed to detect energy weapons, Martinez explained as she moved to a new position. Our bullets don't show up on their screens. In space above the planet, the Krex fleet was having similar problems. Captain Nick Thompson's destroyer squadron refused to fight fair. All ships, attack pattern Chaos 7, Thompson ordered. Remember, if they can predict what we're doing it wrong. The human destroyers scattered in different directions. One ship dove straight down toward the planet. Another spun in circles while firing randomly. A third ship shut down all its systems and drifted like space junk dot. The Krex computers tried to calculate the best response to these tactics. But humans were not following any known battle plan. Every ship did something different and unexpected. Thompson's own ship suddenly accelerated straight at a Krex battleship. The enemy captain must have thought the humans were going to ram them, because the Krex ship turned to avoid collision. Now, Thompson said quietly, his ship released a spread of nuclear mines right in front of the turning Krex vessel. The enemy ran straight into the explosions. Their shields held, but the surprise and confusion gave other human ships time to attack from behind. Got down on the planet. Sergeant Major Cooper's radio crackled with confused reports from both sides. Human forces, what is your position? Asked a coalition commander. Everywhere, Cooper replied. And nowhere. Keep your people in the main streets. We'll handle the side passages. This is not proper military tactics, complained the coalition commander. You're right, Cooper said as he planted another explosive charge. It's better. The Krex were getting frustrated. Their battle plans assumed the enemy would fight honorably. But humans ignored all the rules. They attacked from unexpected directions. They used dirty tricks and hidden weapons. They refused to stand and fight fairly. A Krex ground commander tried to report to his superiors. The human forces are difficult to understand. They do not behave like proper soldiers. Explain, came the reply from orbit. They hide in places warriors should not hide. They attack targets that have no military value. They use weapons that our sensors cannot detect. Are they effective? The commander looked around at the chaos surrounding him. Half his forces were pinned down by snipers they could not locate. The other half was chasing shadows through the city's underground tunnels. Yes, he admitted, they are very effective. Dr. Rachel Kim worked frantically in her mobile laboratory. She had been studying captured Krex equipment for weeks, trying to understand their technology. Admiral Hayes, she called over the radio. I think I found something. Go ahead, Rachel. Their shields operate on a specific frequency. If we can overload that frequency with enough electromagnetic noise, English please, we can make their shields stop working, but only for a few seconds at a time. Hayes smiled. A few seconds was all they needed. The battle for Talron Prime lasted 6 days. When it ended, the Krex forces retreated for the first time in 3 years. They left behind damaged ships, confused commanders, and a lot of questions. Commander Vextar met with Admiral Hayes in the Coalition Command bunker. The alien looked amazed. How did you do it? He asked. Your ships are smaller than ours. Your weapons are weaker. By all calculations, you should have lost. Hayes shrugged. We don't fight by calculations. I do not understand. Neither do the Krex, that's why we won. News of the victory at Talron Prime spread quickly through Coalition space. For the first time in years, people began to hope that maybe, just maybe, the war was not lost. But in the depths of Krex space, the Empire's high command was also taking notice of these strange new enemies. They began to adapt their strategies and prepare new weapons. The humans had won their first battle. Now the real war was about to begin. Commander Thaxel of the Krex Void Fleet stared at the battle reports with growing anger. The humans had defeated 3 more Krex battle groups in the past month. Each time, they used tactics that made no sense according to proper military doctrine. Summon the Tactical Analysis Division. Thaxel ordered his aid. These humans must be studied and understood before they can be eliminated. The aide bowed nervously. Sir, the Analysis Division has been working on this problem for weeks. They report that human tactics appear to be ... random. Nothing is random in warfare, Thaxel replied. There must be a pattern. Find it. Meanwhile, on the mining world of Zarian, Major Kevin Stone watched enemy dropships fill the sky like a dark cloud. His Marines had been sent to protect the mineral extraction facilities, but now they were outnumbered 50-1. Sir, we should retreat, suggested Lieutenant Carl Davis. We can't possibly hold against those numbers. Stone shook his head. Where would we retreat to? The Krex control the orbital space. This is our ground now. The Marines dug into defensive positions around the main mining complex. They had limited ammunition, no air support, and no hope of rescue. By all military logic, they should surrender. Listen up, Stone called to his troops. The brass expects us to hold this position for maybe 6 hours. I say we disappoint everyone and hold it for 6 days. The Marines laughed despite their fear. They knew their major was crazy, but they trusted him completely. The first Krex assault came at dawn. Thousands of enemy soldiers advanced in perfect formation across the open ground. Stone's Marines waited until the last possible moment before opening fire. Pick your targets, Stone ordered calmly. Make every shot count. The human weapons cut down the first wave of attackers, but more kept coming. The Krex seemed to have unlimited soldiers to throw at the human positions. But instead of retreating when their ammunition ran low, the Marines did something unexpected. They started using Krex weapons taken from fallen enemies. When those ran out, they made bombs from mining explosives. When the bombs were gone, they used mining equipment as weapons. Days passed. The siege of Zarian became legendary throughout the galaxy. Coalition news reports told the story of a few hundred humans holding off an entire Krex army. Other Coalition forces began copying human tactics, digging in and refusing to retreat even when defeat seemed certain. Captain Michelle Ross worked in the Coalition shipyards, trying to upgrade alien vessels with human technology. The Coalition engineers thought she was crazy. You want to remove our shield generators? Asked the lead Zeridian engineer. Those are our primary defense systems. No, Ross explained patiently. I want to put armor plating over them. If your shields fail, you still have protection. But armor is so primitive. Primitive works, Ross said as she welded another metal plate to the ship's hull. Ask the Krex. She was also installing manual control systems in Coalition ships. The aliens relied on computers for everything, but human ships could be controlled by hand if necessary. Why would we need manual controls? Asked a Mortai technician. Because the Krex like to hack computer systems, Ross replied. Hard to hack. A steering wheel. The first Coalition ship with human modifications went into battle near the Proxima Nebula. When Krex hackers tried to disable its systems, they found that the ship's weapons still worked perfectly. The human gunners were aiming and firing by hand. Commander Alex Turner ran the Human Intelligence Division from a captured Krex listening post. His job was to figure out how the enemy thought and how to exploit their weaknesses. "Sir, we've intercepted another Krex military transmission," reported Sergeant Linda Hayes. "They're complaining about our tactics again." Turner listened to the translated message with amusement. "They're calling us dishonorable and unpredictable. They want us to fight properly. Should we respond?" "Yes. Tell them we'll fight properly. Right after they surrender unconditionally." Turner's real breakthrough came when he realized that the Krex Empire was divided into rigid social classes. The warriors never questioned orders from their superiors. The scientists never participated in combat. The workers never made decisions. "They can't adapt," Turner explained to Admiral Hayes over a secure channel. "Their whole society is based on everyone staying in their assigned role. And we're breaking their rules just by existing," Hayes replied. "Interesting." Dr. Rachel Kim had been working on new weapons in her laboratory. Her latest invention was crude but effective: a bomb that could disrupt Krex shield frequencies for several minutes instead of just seconds. "I call them disruption bombs," she explained to Captain Thompson. "It won't destroy Krex ships, but they'll make them vulnerable to conventional weapons." Thompson grinned. "How many can you make? How many do you need?" "All of them." The climax of this phase came at Binary Station, a strategic refueling point that both sides desperately wanted to control. The Krex sent their entire third battle fleet to capture it. The Coalition and humans sent everything they could spare to defend it. The battle lasted 18 hours. Human ships used disruption bombs to bring down Krex shields, while Coalition vessels pounded the exposed enemy hulls with energy weapons. Krex forces fought with their usual precision and power, but they couldn't adapt quickly enough to counter the combined human Coalition tactics. When the smoke cleared, the Krex third battle fleet was gone. For the first time in the war, the mighty Krex Empire had suffered a major defeat, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Half the human fleet was destroyed, and thousands of Coalition soldiers were dead. Admiral Hayes floated in her damaged command center, looking at the casualty reports. Commander Brooks was badly injured, and Lieutenant Wells was missing. "Mom," said the communications officer, "we're getting a message from Earth. The President wants to know if we need reinforcements." Hayes looked out at the wreckage of the battle. The war was far from over, and the Krex would not make the same mistakes again. "Tell the President we need everything he can send," she said quietly, "and tell him to prepare Earth's defenses. If we fail here, the Krex will come for our home next." Back in Krex space, Commander Thaxol studied the reports from Binary Station. The humans were not just lucky or unpredictable. They were changing the very nature of warfare itself. "Prepare the ultimate contingency," he ordered his staff. "Deploy the world killer ships. If we cannot defeat these humans in battle, we will destroy their worlds instead." The aide looked shocked. "Sir, that would mean killing billions of innocent civilians." "The humans started this war by refusing to fight properly," Thaxol replied coldly. "Now they will learn the price of defying the Krex Empire." The message was sent through Krex space at light speed. Soon, the most powerful weapons in the galaxy would be moving toward human and Coalition worlds, but the humans were about to teach the Krex Empire something new about the price of threatening innocent people. 6 months had passed since the humans joined the war. The conflict had changed from a one-sided conquest into a brutal fight that neither side could win easily. Colonel Sam Mitchell stood in the interrogation room of the captured Krex command ship and looked at his prisoner. The Krex officer sat perfectly straight in his chair. His gray skin showed no emotion, and his black eyes stared ahead without blinking. This was the first living Krex warrior anyone had ever captured. I am Colonel Mitchell of the Human Defense Force, Sam said in translated Krek's language. What is your name and rank? I am Commander Zexenal of the Krex Empire, the prisoner replied. I demand honorable execution. Mitchell sat down across. From him, we don't execute prisoners. We ask them questions. I will tell you nothing. That's what they all say at first. For 3 days, Mitchell tried different approaches. He offered food, medical care, and comfortable quarters. The Krex officer refused everything. He seemed to think that accepting help would be dishonorable. On the 4th day, Mitchell tried something different. He brought in a small radio and played human music. The effect was immediate. The Krex officer's eyes widened in confusion. He leaned forward in his chair, listening to the strange sounds. What is this? He asked. Music, Mitchell replied. We create it for pleasure. For pleasure? Not for military purposes or religious ceremonies. Sometimes, but mostly we just enjoy it. The Krex officer was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke again. In the Empire, all sounds serve a specific purpose. Communication, warnings, commands. Nothing exists only for enjoyment. That sounds boring, Mitchell said. It is efficient. The officer replied, but his voice sounded uncertain for the first time. Lieutenant, Commander Tracy Wells had been put in charge of psychological warfare operations. Her job was to find ways to hurt enemy morale without firing a shot. What do we know about Krex society? She asked her research team. Everything is controlled by their government, reported Specialist Karen White. No individual choices. Number. Personal freedom. Everyone has a job assigned at birth and never changes it. They've never heard of democracy, free speech, or individual rights, added Corporal Jason Miller. Wells smiled. Then let's teach them. She began broadcasting human cultural materials throughout Krex-controlled space. Music, movies, books, and simple stories about people making their own choices and following their dreams. Most Krex ignored the broadcasts at first, but some began to listen. And once they started listening, they began to ask questions their society had never allowed them to ask before. In the Krex capital city of Rexstar Prime, a young factory worker named Texrin heard strange music coming from a damaged communication device. The sounds made him feel things he had no words for. Joy, sadness, wonder. For the first time in his life, he began to question why he spent every day making the same parts for the same weapons. Why couldn't he choose a different job? Why couldn't he create something beautiful instead of something designed to kill? These thoughts frightened him, but he could not stop thinking them. General Paul Jackson was preparing the largest coalition, offensive in years. He had learned that the key to fighting the Krex was to never let them predict what would happen next. Every battle group will use different tactics, he explained to his commanders. Alpha Group will use human-style guerrilla attacks. Beta Group will fight like traditional coalition forces. Gamma Group will do something completely new that will make up during the battle. Sir, said General Mortai, this plan has no logical structure. Exactly, Jackson replied. The Krex computers will go crazy trying to figure out what we're doing. The offensive began with simultaneous attacks on 7 different star systems. Each battle was fought differently, but all had the same result. Coalition forces reclaimed their lost worlds. The Krex Empire was forced to pull back from several conquered systems to defend more important targets. For the first time since the war began, they were retreating instead of advancing. But the Krex High Command had one final card to play. Admiral Hayes received the transmission while her fleet was patrolling the border between human and Krex space. The message was in perfect English, which was unusual for the Krex. Admiral Hayes of the human fleet, the voice said coldly. I am Supreme Commander Vorthak of the Krex Empire. Your species has interfered in our rightful conquest for the last time. Hayes motioned for her communications officer to record everything. "We are deploying planet killer vessels to your home system," the message continued. "Your world called Earth will be destroyed unless you surrender all human forces immediately. You have 72 hours to comply." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at Admiral Hayes, waiting for her response. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she opened a channel to all human forces throughout the galaxy. "All human ships and ground forces, this is Admiral Hayes. The Krex Empire has just threatened to destroy Earth unless we surrender." Her voice was calm but filled with steel. "I want to make our response very clear to everyone listening, including the Krex." She paused and looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were scared, but they were ready. "We do not negotiate with terrorists. We do not surrender to bullies. And we do not abandon our friends. The Krex want to know what happens when you threaten a human's home. They're about to find out." Across human space, the response was immediate. Every civilian factory began working around the clock to produce weapons and supplies. Retired soldiers volunteered to return to active duty. Families sent their sons and daughters to join the military. But most importantly, every human military unit in the galaxy began moving toward one target, the Krex homeworld of Rexstar Prime. Aliens in the Coalition watched in amazement as humanity transformed from a peaceful species into something they had never seen before. Every human became a soldier. Every human resource was turned toward one goal, total victory. Colonel Mitchell visited his Krex prisoner one last time before shipping out. "Your leaders have made a mistake," he told the officer. "They threatened our home. The Empire has planet-killer weapons," the Krex replied. "Your world will be destroyed." "Maybe," Mitchell admitted, "but we'll make sure yours is destroyed first." For the first time since his capture, the Krex officer looked afraid. Admiral Hayes stood in the command center of the largest human fleet ever assembled. Nearly every human warship in the galaxy was here, preparing for the most desperate mission in human history. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes," she announced. "We're going to attack the heart of the Krex Empire. Many of us will not come back, but we're going to make sure the Krex remember this day for the rest of their history." She looked out at the stars toward the distant Krex homeworld. "They wanted to see what humans do when cornered. Let's show them." The human armada jumped toward Rexstar Prime, carrying the hopes and fury of an entire species. Behind them, Earth's defense fleets prepared for the Krex planet killers that were already on their way. The final battle of the war was about to begin. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Rexstar system like an angry swarm of metal wasps. Admiral Hayes stared at the massive Krex defenses protecting their homeworld and felt her heart sink. Hundreds of enemy ships surrounded the planet in perfect defensive formations. Orbital weapons platforms bristled with enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Energy shields covered the planet itself like a glowing bubble. "Ma'am," reported Commander Brooks from his new position, "enemy fleet strength is approximately 4-1 against us." Hayes nodded grimly. "Just the way we like it. Even odds would be boring." Captain Steve Parker's stealth squadron had already been in the system for 3 days. His ships were disguised as space debris floating silently near the planet's north pole. "Parker to Admiral Hayes," he whispered over the encrypted channel. "We're in position near the shield generators, ready to party on your signal." "Copy that, Steve. Wait for the fireworks to start." The Krex fleet moved to intercept the human armada. They formed their traditional battle lines and prepared to fight an honorable engagement. They expected the humans to retreat when they saw the overwhelming odds. Instead, Admiral Hayes ordered a full attack. "All ships charge." She commanded. The human fleet scattered in every direction like an explosion. Some ships dove toward the planet. Others climbed high above the system's plane. A few accelerated straight at the largest Krex battleships. The Krex computers tried to calculate the best response, but there was no pattern to predict. Every human ship was doing something different. Commander Vrexall of the Krex Home Fleet watched. In confusion, as a small human destroyer spun in circles while firing missiles in random directions. Another human ship was broadcasting what sounded like music over all military frequencies. "What are they doing?" he demanded. His tactical officer studied the displays with growing panic. "Sir, I cannot determine their strategy. They appear to be improvising." "Ships do not improvise," Vrexall snapped. "There must be a plan. If there is, sir, our computers cannot understand it." Meanwhile, Corporal Maria Santos and her squad had been stranded on the planet's surface when their transport was shot down. Instead of hiding and waiting for rescue, she decided to complete their original mission. "Listen up," she told her 5 remaining Marines. "We were supposed to disable the planetary communication center. That's still the job." "Sarge," said Private Tony Martinez, "there are about 1 million Krex soldiers between us and that target." "So we go around them," Santos replied simply. Using stolen Krex uniforms and forged identification, the small human squad walked straight through the capital city. The Krex were so focused on the space battle above that they barely noticed 6 more soldiers moving through the streets. In space, the battle was turning into chaos. Human ships refused to die when they were supposed to. When their weapons were destroyed, they rammed enemy vessels. When their engines failed, they used emergency thrusters to keep fighting. Captain Nick Thompson's destroyer was cut in half by a Krex energy beam, but the front section kept firing until the ammunition ran out. Then Thompson used the ship's remaining power to crash into a Krex command vessel. Admiral Hayes watched her flagship's hull buckle under enemy fire. Half her crew was dead or wounded, but nobody suggested surrendering. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Willis from the damage control station, "we've lost main power and life support is failing." "Then we'll fight without power and hold our breath," Hayes replied calmly. "Transfer command to the secondary bridge." But there was no secondary bridge left. So Hayes moved her command post to a damaged escape pod and continued directing the battle from there. The turning point came when Corporal Santos and her squad reached the planetary communication center. Instead of just destroying it, Santos had a better idea. "Can you hack into their system?" she asked Corporal Mike Johnson, their tech specialist. "Give me 5 minutes," Johnson replied. Soon, human music and cultural broadcasts were being transmitted directly into every Krex communication device on the planet. For the first time in their history, the Krex people heard songs about freedom, stories about individual choice, and messages about the right to make your own decisions. The effect was immediate and devastating to Krex society. In the capital city, factory worker Texrin stopped his production line and walked outside. For the first time in his life, he refused to follow orders. Around him, thousands of other Krex were doing the same thing. "Why do we fight this war?" Texrin asked a Krex. "Soldier, what do we gain from conquering other worlds?" The soldier had no answer. He had never been allowed to ask such questions before. Throughout the planet, Krex civilians began questioning everything their government had taught them. Why couldn't they choose their own jobs? Why couldn't they travel to other worlds? Why couldn't they create art and music like the humans did? The question spread like wildfire through Krex society. Workers abandoned their posts. Soldiers laid down their weapons. Even some government officials began to wonder if the Empire's way was the only way. Commander Vrexall received reports of the rebellion with growing horror. "Sir," his aide reported with a shaking voice, 40% of our planetary defense forces have stopped responding to orders." The civilian population is ... rioting. How is this possible? Vrexol demanded. The humans, sir. They are broadcasting messages about something called freedom. In space, the human fleet was down to its last few ships. Admiral Hez's escape. Pod had been picked up by Captain Lisa Stone's heavily damaged cruiser. They had perhaps 10 minutes of fighting time left. All remaining human forces, Hayes broadcast. This is it. We've done what we came to do. The Krex homeworld is in chaos. Even if we don't make it home, we've won. But then Captain Parker's voice crackled over the radio. Admiral, this is Parker. Package delivered. Planetary shields are down. Suddenly, Coalition reinforcements began jumping into the system. Commander Vextar's fleet had been waiting at the system's edge for the shields to fall. Now they poured through the gap, bringing fresh ships and renewed hope about the combined human coalition. Fleet overwhelmed the confused Krex defenders. But the real victory was happening on the planet below, where an entire civilization was learning about freedom for the first time. Supreme, Commander Vorthak stood in his command bunker and watched his empire fall apart. The rebellion was spreading. To other worlds now. His own officers were beginning to question their orders. Sir, said his aide quietly, the High Council is requesting immediate peace negotiations with the humans and coalition. Vorthak closed his eyes and felt centuries of Krex dominance crumble around him. Send the message, he said finally. We surrender. 3 months later, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the conference room aboard the UES Defiance, now anchored in Earth orbit. The Treaty of Terra had been signed, officially ending the war and making humanity a full member of the Coalition. A young Coalition officer approached him with a question that had been bothering military strategists throughout the galaxy. Captain Morrison, the officer asked, what made humans such effective warriors? Your technology was inferior to ours, and your numbers were smaller. Yet you changed the entire course of the war. Morrison thought for a moment, then smiled. We had something the Krex didn't understand, and the Coalition had forgotten. What was that? We didn't know how to quit. Outside the viewports, ships from dozens of different species worked together to rebuild what the war had destroyed. And somewhere in the former Krex Empire, newly free people were learning to make their own choices and follow their own dreams. The humans had not just won a war. They had shown the galaxy that freedom was worth fighting for, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon in the universe was simply refusing to give up. Admiral Hayes, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood on her new flagship and looked out at the stars. Humanity had passed its first test as a galactic civilization. Whatever challenges came next, she knew her species would face them the same way they always had, together and never backing down.